out him. Okay. What hour is it? Hour 5, I think. Welcome to hour 5 of the Connectathon. Our question is, well, it's what if the woo is the way? Woo way. Um, yeah, Rupin, do you want to share how this question came up for us a little bit, or Susie or Stella, really? Manifestation was we're inquiring into manifesting together. Because manifestation, well, it's here. I mean, it's all the time, but there have been stories, and we thought it would be a good thing to inquire about with everyone together. So, Rupin?
Woo for me doesn't exist. Um, the woo is the wow. The woo is the wow. The wow that's in the way. That's that's what manifestation feels like. I just want to just before I pass it over to Susie and Stella so that they can share what's coming up for them. At the end of what uh, Thomas was saying, I was reminded of how my relationship with my daughter improved while Susie, Stella, Kim, and I sat every week. I don't know how many weeks we sat together to prepare for today. I think it was about 5 weeks we sat together. And little by little, I was dissolving, little by little, dissolving what was keeping a distance between me and my daughter. And now there's a flow and there's lots of love. So there's more access to love. So I want to open this to say that we're continuing with love, and love is part of the woo, if you want to call it woo, and it's also part of the way.
And then Susie and Stella, just with the process. I want to name the other people who are here in the circle here who also are part of this inquiry. I mean, we all are, everyone who's here, but specifically who came for this, Alexander and Chantel and Patricia and Marina, and then the four of us. So continue on, Susie and Stella, and then Alexander will share a little bit about Wu Wei.
So, Rup and I totally get it. Our conversations over the past weeks have been, and I was in Cape Town then, have really been magical. It has been powerful to sit in a circle of a space where I'd say everyone is heard and seen, and it's given that space to expand. And manifestation hasn't been in mainstream classrooms of how we are actually manifesting. It's been woo, it's been taboo of it hasn't been a subject. It's been something that I know in my personal world has been frowned upon if you are even entertaining anything from that's not from mainstream. So the power that we created in the weeks building up now, where we organically, gently connected with each other, and what was created in that essence of healing, Rupin, with you and your daughter, of healing, I can say for myself, I was with my family in Cape Town, the power of presencing and intention setting and the power of these simple, clear words that we have learned from each other in our circles of how to speak manifestation has been a real classroom and really powerful to see it. I am very fortunate now to experience real manifestation from this quieter vessel that I'm in, my nature, true nature address. And it is far from woo. It is the way. And love is the way. I am love. Therefore, I am the creator. I am consciously creating my world now from where I am within me and with what I emanate, what I vibrate. And it's very powerful. And I'm very proud to be able to speak to it very bravely now. I'm sure in a past life I would have been hung up a tree or something. But it is a real thing. It is a real, real thing of manifestation from internal to external, from this loving being that we are. And I want to thank you, Rupin and Kim and Stella, for allowing us to be in a safe space where it can just really create magical things. And there's so much to speak on that topic.
I seldom find myself without words. I'm a chatty Cathy. I have a talking stick of my own. But for me, I loved what Rupin said about uh, the relationship with her daughter shifting. And I think for me, what's interesting about this particular topic is that we try to explain it. We try to find words to define something that is more about things like allowing and softening and surrendering. I think I said it last week that I noticed that my ability to manifest, I seem to be able to tap into whatever that is when I try less. And it's this ability to embody, and it is embodiment. It's about this, and I love that we have a yogini present for a lot of this, because I think there are things that are very real and very grounded and very nervous system oriented that have been sort of swept under this categorical rug of the strange and the woo woo. But there are practices that are ancient that modern science is now proving. Um, and again, for me, the thing about the woo is that it's again just really about softening for me in this last while, and softening into trust, intuition, a knowing. Again, all of these words that we sort of reach for, but a lot of the time, more and more, I feel, and I loved also what Artie said about the humbling. I just find the more fun we have, the more joy we choose, uh, the things that we seem to want to have in our lives appear. They seem to just fall out of the sky. But really, that's about softening into and allowing. And that does seem a bit woo in a world that has us jumping through hoops and living in the rat race and chasing our tails. It's very counterintuitive to just trust. That's where I'm at with this today. Tomorrow I might have a different way of expressing it, whatever it is. But it's definitely the way.
Thank you, Stella. And I want to mention Alejandra, who is also here as part of this circle. And just in the chat, put the names of Alexander, Chantel, Patricia, Alejandra, Marina, just to be sure that we get all voices in and then expand beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we probably should name this whole session from woo woo to woo way. Yeah, beyond the woo woo. But, I like the softening into. I wanted just to share a little bit the screen which went off. Hello, here we are. This kind of definitional grounding that we can have perhaps a common reference point for Wu Wei. There are many ways of looking at it, but in Taoism, taking it in the framework from the Chinese term, it's about natural or non-contrived action, right? So let me just read what it has here. Wu Wei is an important concept in Taoism and means natural action, or in other words, action that does not involve struggle or excessive effort. Wu Wei is therefore kind of like involving the cultivation of a mental state in which our actions are quite effortless or effortlessly in alignment with the flow of life. So in this sense, it means non-contrived engagement. This comes to what Arti was talking about also in terms of the humbleness. It's not having to figure it all out and then be super smart about what you're going to do, say, or be. It's allowing this to flow through you as we are saying. It's the difference between learning to dance and learning to be danced, right? And we've talked about that, I think, in other connectathons. How can we be danced by the universe from moment to moment? Because if you're seeking to dance, you're all the time efforting. You're efforting. You're saying, okay, let me, what are the next steps? Okay, wait, am I doing this right? Okay, I'm okay. Let me try to dance. And as the famous scholar and philosopher Yoda would say, there is no try, right? Do or do not. So this is simply the being. And how do we create ourselves? How do we make ourselves available to this flow? And I think it is a little bit what was talked about in the past session as well. It's a difference between letting go in such a way as you are disconnecting. There's a kind of letting go when you disconnect. It's like, okay, I'm done. I let go. I release that. Goodbye. And maybe even good riddance. And that's a disconnecting, it's a cutting. And then there's the letting go of non-efforting, which is okay, I'm here, I'm present, I'm staying connected, but I'm not going to be trying to control. And just a little story about this, and this came to me when I was visiting my parents who live in Tuscany. And so it was in summertime, the water is very warm and it's salty. So if the sea is not too wavy, you can float without doing much. So I did that a little, and I was enjoying floating, but I kind of let go, but I connected with the surface of the ocean. There was a sense of I am the surface, and it was moving me, or I was moving it. It was we were one, right? So there was this oneness that Glenn was talking about as well. This sense of I don't know where I am. Where well, yes, there's that, but I don't know where I end. I know where I end. It's I was like part of that. The water was same temperature as I was. So that's beautiful. And then I tried a little experiment. I said, okay, what happens if I let go in the other way? I'm going to disconnect. And I just went limp and I let go. And I started to sink. I started to sink. So I think this is a big difference when you let go and disconnect from source, from love, from the original love that Glenn was talking about. Then you sink. You're not danced by the universe from moment to moment. And I think this for me is what the Wu Wei. The last thing I'll mention on this is that I've now been it's over 40 years now. It's like, oh my God, over 40 years that I've been practicing the martial arts. And it's not practice, right? It's doing, it's being. And as Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, in his beautiful book, The Art of Peace, he would write about how if you are engaged in the flow exchange, which is a conversation in the martial arts, you can't think. If you are thinking like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now in for my next series of moves, you're not in the flow state. You co-arise. There's a beautiful saying among old martial artists, because I can say it now, that it says, they do not move and I do not move. But if they move, I move first. It's just a little funny, but the idea in the frame, in that phrase, is that there is no I in this. I am not moving. There is a being moved in that frame. And there's a co-arising. And indeed, that is what happens moment to moment. This is the symbiosis that Donna Haraway writes about so beautifully. This is the co-arising in the moment as an expression of, as a true expression of the moment. So I think the invitation here that Rupen was also calling for is to be naturally this, and it's not the striving, it's to, again, I guess I'm having difficulty with the words because it's beyond words. This is ineffable. There is, I love, by the way, that there's a word for a thing you can't say, ineffable. It's like, how funny is that? So but this is not meant to be put into words. It's not meant to be crystallized, not meant to be caught. It's not meant to be here, let me package it. This is the moment. This is what we are or how we are being. But it is, as Buckminster Fuller said, it's not a noun. It's being a verb. He says, I'm not a thing. I appear to be more of a verb that is expressing the universe in interaction with that which is emerging now all around, right? So again, it's a difference between abandoning and letting go and saying, I'm just an express, okay, whatever the universe wants, I'm going to just do that. Let me just sit back. That's a disconnection. But being a tuning fork, be and vibrating at your own vibration, right? That's in harmony, in resonance. This is the concept of syntony in its deepest sense, with all that is co-emerging in a moment. Then we help that emergence. Then we are the islands of coherence that cohere and connect, because we're vibrating as human tuning forks with each other across these islands of coherence. And we hear that. Just like the whales can hear each other across huge distances in the water, we can hear each other across these distances of our islands of coherence. It's super important. All right. As they would say in Clubhouse, I'm Alexander and I'm complete. I don't know if anyone does Clubhouse, but okay.
May I say something? I don't know what the rules are, but
Yeah,
I
you can, and then we'll go to Chantel. Yes.
okay. I just I'm just moved to say that that's so profound what's just been shared. I think I didn't even know what this session was going to be about, but I'm so happy with what it's become. It's really, yeah. I didn't realize it was going to be Taoist based, but I just adore that. I think that is the key for all of us, and particularly in our politics, which are too often ego driven. If the Taoists understood that the best leaders are the ones that are following nature. Nature is the only leader, really. Everything is coming from seed to root to bud to fruit. Everything is unfolding at its own pace. And it's, thank you, Alexander. It's not that you're letting go to let nature be happening separate from you. You're very much there. You're there. And you're paying attention. You're paying attention, so you're attuning and you're allowing that attunement to vibrate, to resonate in your soul, in your heart, and that is going to be passed to everybody that you are in their presence. And that is so beautiful. That is what is needed to be fed, because when that happens, then humans are resuming their role that they used to understand very well, but they've forgotten, is that we are part of the natural. We are the light, the air, the water, the earth. We are moving in spirit with what is already unfolding, with what nature wants to happen. Ooh, I just love that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think it's very importante. And so it's not even that we need new leaders. We need whoever is in a position of leadership to listen to the natural world, and then they will make the right steps at the right time. So thank you very much. Appreciate it greatly.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm noticing that, so you answered the question that you asked, and we are now going next to a leader, an elected official, Chantal, who is the tech town councilor, who does do this,
Yes,
and
she does.
and and is also, she's one of the people. It's like you just look around the manifestation. Well, it just happened, and she's aware of it, and it's just a perfect perfect person in this circle as we share the practical nature of this. And maybe there will just be maybe the time will only be for this single individualness. And next connectathon, maybe we go into the shared inquiry. Well, so what if this is together, that shared intention? So Chantal, over to you.
Sorry, I'm just giggling at Alexander's post in the chat. A woman manifester. I can't. So that feels fun. Um, yeah, I've been sitting here listening to everyone and just feeling like vibrating right now with a sense of intent. Like, wow, isn't this perfect? And it really is this alignment. And over the last 2 weeks or so, I've been in so many different spaces, from International Women's Day events to I was at a Two-Eyed Seeing an Ethical Space conference. Um, where was I yesterday? It just seemed like every space I was in, people were talking about the same idea, but from different lenses. And um, over years, I've been reflecting on what is it that um, causes me to feel disconnected and to feel burnt out and overwhelmed and panicky and like I need to fix it and I don't know what it is and I have to hurry up. And where is that coming from? And I really think it's from the operating system we're all, like, the Western culture is within. It's rooted on violence and extraction, overproduction, poisoning crops to get them to produce all the time. And that is fundamentally against the natural way of being. You know, nature has its own law. So in um, First Nation communities where I'm at, they talk often about natural law and that nature has a law. And no matter what other laws we put over top and we pretend that we can be this, you know, we can produce all the time and we can force ourselves to override our natural systems, we actually can't. And I think what we're seeing right now is the collapse of the not only the natural systems, but also our community systems, our political systems, and then even our internal systems, our own nervous systems can't function in that operating system. And so there is this collective, like, you know, this isn't working, but what do we do instead? And turning to nature and observing how nature works in cycles of rest. I even that certain species bloom once a year, some every 5 years, some maybe never. But it's not about what they're producing or blooming that makes them inherently valuable and worthy. And I think that's something that requires a lot of decolonization for us to be able to really settle into the fact that I'm here right now and anything else is here and alive means that it inherently is worthy of life and inherently worthy of belonging and is contributing in its own way. Yeah, and for me, I turn to breath as practice and see that our inhale is an act of belonging, that breath is essentially life, and without breath, I would die right now, right? Or very, very quickly. And I can't be breathing if everything else is not existing, especially the natural world. So that inhale, I have the opportunity to remember that I am alive right now because of this web of life. And it is supporting me in this moment. And for me, that's an act of belonging. Saying, you know, Chantal, we want you here. Accept this gift of life and breathe it in. And then I have a choice to either breathe it in like to my neck, you know, like, or I can breathe it in really deeply. I can be really nourished by it. And what I find is when I breathe in really deeply, then my exhale is easy. And when we were talking about effortless or letting go of control, I think that's where the easy exhale comes from, is when I am very well nourished with that inhale, I'm receiving vitality and life through my whole being, then my exhale is like, ah, ah, you know, isn't that lovely? And I don't control my exhale. And it flows out of me and it just ripples through and it goes out and it nourishes other life. And it has, in that way, I'm contributing. And so for me, that cycle of inhale and exhale is connecting and weaving myself into that web of life. And when I'm in that way of being, then it's easy for me to listen to the cues that are coming up in my body around, like, no, you know, maybe don't say that yet, or hold off on that email, or and that's hard because the dominant narrative system is like, well, you know, you need to send this out 4 days ahead of your event and you need to do this and this and that. And inside it's like, yeah, no, for some reason, I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, let me just keep breathing because this is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to sort of move outside of that dominant system and start really listening and following those cues. And then as I'm doing that, I start to notice them in the world around me. And so that's really what I'm seeing the last few weeks is everywhere I'm looking is the same message in different ways. And so that's really affirming to me that I am in flow, and that what I'm sensing and what I'm practicing is something that is being felt and experienced with others as well. And so very grateful to be here with all of you and curious to hear how the conversation continues. Thank you.
Thanks, Chantel. We're gonna move over to Patricia. Patty, if you would like to share. I'll just make one note about Patty. She's deeply sensing person, but her nickname with me is prototyping Patty, because Patty takes things and they go into action. There's no one I've met that's like Patty doing that. So just over to you, Patty.
Thank you, Kim. A couple of things are popping up for me, and I must say, yesterday I was in a session with Peter Block and Peter Pula and a few others, if people here recognize those names. So a lot of things around community, belonging, gathering, if you will. I want to go back. I want to make some threads, or at least attempt to make some threads about your original question, Kim, and kind of tie in what I've been hearing other people say. What if the woo is the way? And I think, how do we describe the woo is a nice invitation. Like, what does that mean, either collectively or personally? And I think, again, something that I'm noticing that's emerging is like the practices of being mindful, the practices being intentional and deliberate on being connected, being present, whether that's, the breathing, meditation, having the sense of belonging, understanding the importance of that sense of belonging. And I'm sure there's a list of other things of how we want to describe the woo. It can be moments like this, practicing gratitude. And I think it also, in your question, the question of the group, what if the woo is the way, and manifesting together, we can look at it as a departure, like we're being asked to maybe invited into these spaces, and it's a departure from some of the operating systems. I like that phrase, of our, if I can say, kind of society that wants to run on efficiency, that wants to run on high doses of competitiveness. If I hiked 7 miles today, let me do 9 miles tomorrow, right? It's always wanting more, being more, faster, better than my neighbor, or how green can I get my grass? It has to be greener than the grass in nature, So I think your question really asks us to depart from that and embrace the way, right? And I love the Taoism play on words there, where we can relax it all and maybe not be so competitive, either with ourselves, embrace a little bit more self-compassion with ourselves and to other, embrace more empathy, more grace to ourselves and with each other. And how does that change, right, our neighborhoods? How does that change our very interpersonal selves, and then like within our families, within our neighbors, for the sake of, the greater connection, for the sake of the greater good, for the sake of, co-creating a place that works for everyone. And I think that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty and Alejandra.
Thank you, Kim. Thinking about this being in resonance and dance, with this community. Today has been a very insightful morning here in the west of Canada, because I realized after our few meetings of today that the session 7 that I will guide today, it's a manifestation of this process that we are building as community across the world. And I didn't realize that until today, that I was taking a breakfast after the two first conversations we had. So I invited my uncle, and my daughter will be there too. And we will talk about this common worry of the risk of that our planet is facing. And my uncle has worked for 52 years on that in a very, very deep way. And for me, it's so fantastic to realize that it's like, connecting in a transgenerational way, that the knowledge, the responsibility, the passion, and it's something that we haven't done before as a family. So I can see this emergence that we should just being there to tune it, but keep going. And it was not part of a specific plan. I guess that it could be interesting because we are family and so, but I didn't see the relevance in terms of a word that has come back coming back from during the morning here in this part of the world, that it's the transgenerational justice. And for my daughter, that is quite important. We had a conversation previously this week to talk about, preparing the session. And when she heard our guests, my uncle and a friend that has been working in with local communities in Mexico, she said, "I'm just so glad and impressed that the older generations are working on let us a different world, because sometimes we as young generation we see the the massive disaster that the previous generations just are leaving us. And when I see people like you working on this, I feel so happy, and I have hope. And so yeah, thank you very much. And it's difficult to be just there and not preparing everything, not taking control of everything. But I think it's a place where we will find new ways of being, moving out from this dominant system, as Chantal said. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll go over to Marina.
Thank you for sharing and for this deep and rich conversation. And when Chantal was sharing her breathing practice, I remembered one of my favorite, very similar exercises to calm down and to restore the connection with reality without different misconceptions. It is about inhaling love and exhaling gratitude. And it's really connected with this idea of belonging to me, because love is connection with the whole being, with the sacredness of life. And by exhaling this love and restoring this connection with the reality, with the whole being. We increase our capacity to embrace everything without judgment and without conditions. And at the same time, breathing out gratitude for me is the basic restoration of the perception of the world as a kind being. So today's media and all this, all the scope of information which we usually perceive from outside, it gives us notion and understanding that the world is cruel, that people are crazy, that politics are leading us to the catastrophe, and so on and so forth. And this multiplies anxiety and disconnects us from our inner core and from our connection to the wiser whole, to which we all belong and to which of which we all are the part. And I think that this basic predominant worldview conviction that the world is kind is an opportunity to relax. And I also remembered cats, especially Alexander's cat. And cats have a very interesting capacity of staying relaxed and at the same time being constantly ready to react. So this attentive state of being relaxed and being able to be agentic in the emergence of anything, I think it's a very important capacity which can and should be trained for children in order to perceive the world with openness and with gratitude and with kindness, but at the same time with this, without this disconnectedness about which Alexander was telling, being in constant connection and contact with the reality without judgment, without anxiety, without tension, but in this relaxed conditioned state as cats do. So love the world, be a cat.
So we've heard from everyone that Kim had mentioned, and we'd like to open it up to others in the space that would like to also bring in their voice. The room.
Okay. Because I've just been sitting here taking some notes, and first the discussion on breath, and then what Marina just shared about anxiety and preparedness. It reminded me of a children's story I wrote called Noah, the boy that followed his nose. And Noah stands for nitrogen, oxygen, argon, and hydrogen, what you breathe in. And the intention of the story was to tell a story that a child and a parent or guardian can share together that creates an awareness of your breath, which then creates an awareness of where you are in the world. And so my approach for that, because I think one of the things that we're talking about is how we do these things that connect with younger generations and older generations, and how those generations connect together. And that's why I spend so much time thinking about stories that are inaccessible, but stories that stimulate that 4-year-old to ask why and build that bond and that questioning and that curiosity. And so, briefly, I think the tools that we use, we have to examine the tools that we use and the tools that we've used for generations and how we can apply them in a modern context where we have this challenge of this distraction and where we have the challenge of the anxiety that's caused through that, especially young children are exposed to through media, but also parents that are are really just fighting for to feed their children and keep people safe. And so that connection to the using the cat as an example, Alexander's cat is a great example of being relaxed but being prepared to move and pounce. In the Noah story, Noah wakes up and he smells his breakfast and he doesn't know why. Smelling breakfast makes him salivate and hungry. And then he walks outside and he asks his dog, "What's this about smell? You know, you get a really good nose." And the dog says, "Just follow your nose." And so it takes this boy on a journey through different smells, from smells of cities to the smells of things. But the intention is that through this story or using stories, we can create an awareness of a whole pile of things in a very simple sort of metaphoric way. And near the conclusion of the story, he ends up walking up a mountain, meeting a bear, and the bear talks about breath. And the boy learns to meditate and breathe, and then he teaches other children. So I think my just listening since I joined this morning, um, all of this sort of stuff, it all weaves in together, and how we craft it and weave it, and then use it to reach out through generations and through our families. And you know, I recently had a birthday, and I mentioned that I was going to be doing this on Sunday, and my kids said, "What are you going to spend hours and hours on this Zoom thing for, Dad? You know, need to get away from the computer. You need to get out into the bush. You need to go and play." Um, but it's about this connection, and it's about sharing this stuff, which motivates us to move ahead and keep doing what seems to have lost value in a society that's so distracted. Anyway, that's just my thoughts.
You know, you have Chakri and Sumit in Dubai. I don't know if you want to bring your voice in here to this space at all. You're welcome.
Thank you, Kim. I'm good. Um, Resonating with all the words and just being with it. Thank you.
Kim,
Yes.
yes, I have a sort. I have an overview, if you like, of what I'm hearing, and it began with the opening session. That I nearly said it then, and then it applied to everything that Glenn was saying 2 hours ago now. And when the four of you who set up this session each mentioned manifestation, and it suddenly occurred to me that all manifestation is changing, and the ease with which you were all sort of reflecting is true to the dimensional change that we're going through, or the density change, or whatever it is. So we're coming out of the third dimension, which is controlling. It's hierarchical and it's external stimulus. We expect to be told. So we're moving into the fifth dimension, which is compassion. It's heart-centered. We have to make our own decisions, and it's an internal stimulus. So manifestation has got to be easy, because manifestation comes from what you believe, not what you're told. Yeah, we're shifting into a world in which everything is going to manifest, everything's going to be magic. So the clue to this I got from Neil Donald Walsh 30-something years ago, when he said we're coming out of a world in which what you see is what you get, and we're moving into a world in, well, sorry, no, his words were, seeing is believing is the old way of thinking. Believing is seeing is the new way. As we move into the fifth dimension, what you believe will come about because you believe it. And it manifests. Magic. It's not difficult. It's simply what we're moving into. So we wouldn't be in Connectathon if we weren't in the higher fourth dimensional, moving into the fifth. You can step into the fifth the day you want. And people who see manifestation working are already in that frame of mind, which is heart-centered. Simply working from inner motivation that says, what I want in the world, what I believe in the world, what I'm giving in the world comes about. There's no complication to it. That's life, just doing what life does. The old world totally confused all that, took all that responsibility away from you, told you you've got to do something, nonsense. So we're moving into a world in which love, compassion, whatever we believe and believe with our hearts comes about. Easy.
Paul, would you like to share anything before we go in the last couple minutes? This is kind of right up your alley.
Me?
Yes.
Was the question, is woo the way? Did I hear somebody asking that question? Wow, okay. I've no idea. I've only been here 5,000 years, so it's too early to tell. But I can sing you woo in Irish. You can decide. Aun gwe hana faligu. Aun tolios chinvayu. Aun dard na dahiva. Aun shakman. Aun ro tiodruk dungre. Lam shachtar. Amnia de Shachnail Mart Filiptu Aum Blahin Yadahi Aum Bradon Fasa Ki crown Agus an héine ag tiitim fada. Ki é an crown agus an héine ag tiitim fada. So I learned that song in 600 AD when my ancestors met the Tuatha De Danann coming from the Iberian Peninsula, because I'm Milesian. So if woo is the way, there it is in Irish. Bannockty.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, everyone. Um, we are, this is really very nourishing. We're going to close up this particular circle now, and in a couple minutes at the top of the hour, welcome collective presencing. And I see Jade and Linda and Jade and Linda. Okay, so thank you. And Tim, will you knock this? Okay.